Hello, my name is Tiff J. Welcome to my channel. I'll do something a little different, or starting to with these videos. I'm going to be doing some reviews on Power Rangers stuff and maybe Sentai. For the first video, it's going to be Power Rangers versus Power Rangers. It's really mostly going to be about Mighty Morphin versus Megaforce slash Supermegaforce. Now the reason I'm doing this is a lot of times, people like to compare these two, because technically Megaforce was going for pretty much a carbon copy of Mighty Morphin. And it'd be cool to get like opinions on it. And these are strictly my opinions. Whoever grew up Megaforce, that's cool. These are just my opinions on what I think is good or bad about it, or what's the differences, or how it's like just not good in my opinion. So it's strictly my opinion. Everyone is different with certain series, so it doesn't matter for me. And this review is gonna be it's gonna focus on characters, but to focus more in detail of the show itself, from the buildings and everything else that goes along with it. So with that said, let's start with where mostly it starts off, the opening. Now, this is where it's completely different. In Mighty Morphin, it starts out really cool, especially in the first series or first season. Rita pops up and it's like, I'm free! It's time to conquer Earth! And they got, Alpha and Zordon getting teenagers' attitude, and then the theme song starts. And I actually thought it was pretty clever because it was short, it was funny, because Rita is just Rita. And it was just really cool of an opening before the intro. Of course, after that, it just became just the music, what we know of the Mighty Morphin theme. As for Megaforce and even Super Megaforce, it's a little bit different because it's kind of like this narration comes in saying like, our planet was free, and then suddenly, but the way it felt like it was longer until it got to the actual theme song, and it was every single episode. Now, the difference between the two is that with at least the Mighty Morphin, at least with Rita, it was short, it was funny, and it had personality. It was also the villain, and she was just hilariously funny as a character itself within the show. You kind of knew what you were getting from that character, from who she was. And then of course Zordon Alpha, and then of course with the theme song, because it's really cool and upbeat and I love it. As for the Megaforce, Super Megaforce, I felt like that intro should have been just for one episode, and then all the rest should have been just maybe just like this music, because, or even like shortened, because it felt like I just want to skip it. When it was the first episode, I didn't skip it. I just was curious about the intro. But after that, I was like, I wanted to skip it. As for Mighty Morphin, I never wanted to skip Rita's, unless I just wanted to go to the episode at the time. But Rita's was just funny, and that's what I remember, even after not watching it for a while, or even just really watching it. I would say probably like this past weekend, it stuck in my mind more. Where this one I just watched and it doesn't stick in my mind, even though I watched like a few episodes, and it just doesn't, like, it's not embedded in my brain. Where this one is like, oh, this is funny, this is great, and it works for that. Now, characters I'm going to wait till last, because I sort of just want to get into the other premises. Except maybe these two characters. Now, we first see with, I would say, Zordon and Alpha 5, and then in Megaforce, you got Gosei and Tensu. If I'm saying that wrong, I'm very sorry. Now, the difference being, Zordon and Alpha sort of have personalities. And Zordon sort of impacts wisdom, in a way. Zordon was kind of like the father figure. He was kind of like the person in the tube. Let's go with that. who basically was your mentor, someone who would just like get you out of bind most of the time, and who was caring, but also would tell them about the monster that was going on, like what's made of, like Lizinator, what was made of this hard, I think, steel from a different planet. Like how, he would describe it as like, you should be able to fight it this way, like, helping them figure it out how to fight it. With Megaforce and Supermegaforce, kind of the same deal. Ghosty didn't really do that, or when he did, it felt very monotone. Like all he said was like, you unleash new power, or all this stuff. He never really explained, or they never went into full detail of this monster, of how to fight it. They just figure it out, or of course stock footage, which something I'm gonna get into a little later in this video. Now Alpha 5 and Tensu. Now Tenso, it's pretty much a Wally copyright, or knockoff, because he didn't really go anywhere, like, as I saw. Like, it just very, like, he was there, but there was no, he never left the center, or he never left the base. He was just there. Like, he was just kind of helping and all that stuff, but there's nothing. Alpha 5, on the other hand, left the base, like, multiple times, like, not even once. Like, there was one episode which is pretty funny, sticks to my brain, where Zach was teaching Alpha to breakdance in the command center, and this is just funny. I don't know why. This is one of my favorite scenes, and Zordon calls the Raider saying, like, job well done. It's like, don't mind the static. Alpha is just trying to, like, learn how to dance, or practicing its moves. And it's just like the craziest things, like, oh, the static, because he's pressing the buttons. So I'm like, dude, I love this. This is like fun. And also, Alpha 5 was kind of like that best friend, little brother to them. Like, he was sort of like the one that wanted to help the Rangers. Like, it would always like try to help them out, making sure all the stuff. And I felt like there was connection with him and the Rangers. But also, he went out a lot too. He played with the kid. He would help them out in some sort of way. He would also, like, the one Halloween episode where he goes to a costume party, because why not? No one's going to suspect, he's an alien, or he's, not from Earth, because it's Halloween. You're supposed to dress up. And I still love the lines in this, which is funny, because Billy says to Alpha, is like, well, great, got a great costume. And Alpha's just like, what costume? Like, what costume are you talking about? And I'm just like, those little lines are just like, they're funny, and yet I remember it, even just watching like 200 some episodes of Mighty Morphin, and yet that still sticks out to me. Where Megaforce, it's kind of hard to pinpoint what episode. I mean, I might not know the titles, because as I said, Mighty Morphin, there's like 100, 200 episodes in the whole thing, because he got 3 separate Sentais. So there's that difference. But it still was funny, and he would get shenanigans. He would just help out. He was always worried. I mean, it's just like, you were just like, every time you saw Alpha, you just like, can I hang out with him? Now let's go on to the bigger one, where you see this is kind of in the intro, but also you see it as the main thing, which is the command base, or command center, compared to the command base in Megaforce and Supermegaforce. The thing with the Supermegaforce one, I felt, or Megaforce, it's the same thing. I mean, Megaforce in general, it didn't feel cozy. Like, it was almost like it was like a cave, but it didn't feel like I want to be there, if that makes sense. Like, it's not like a personal thing. It's just kind of like watching it and them going in there. Like, it feels very narrow, and that whole deal, and small. Like, command center was big, and yet they were on a circle thing, and with all 6 of them, or 5 of them plus Alpha, 7 of them, etc. or in some cases with Adam, Rock, and Aisha came, 9 of them, 10 of them because of Alpha again, fit on there. It didn't. There was times when it felt, small, but at the same time, it felt more cozy small, if that makes sense. Like, it felt like I want to hang out there. I want to hang out at the command center, and then it felt right, and it looked better. It's very pleasing. It's so different. It's something that you would never see, basically. And just like with the other one in Megaforce, Supermegaforce, it just felt. It was almost like a pretense for Dino Charge, but Dino Charge was a little bit easier to please and easier, like, bigger. This one was just like narrower, to where it's like narrow and little screens, and it felt like a store, if that makes sense. And you walk in and there's like display cases, basically, within the whole deal of it, with a display case with all the different Ranger keys. Which is funny in Megaforce because they don't get to that season till Super Megaforce, and yet there's the Ranger keys. That's the one that I did not get. Of that, by the way. Now there's another building that is, they kind of mimic, but they're both so different. Is the Juice Bar, what they called it my Morphin, and then the Brain Freeze in Megaforce. Now, don't get me wrong, the Brain Freeze looks cool, looks fine. It's in a mall, so I mean, teenagers hang out in a mall, so it makes sense for them. My problem I have with it is like it's very clean cut, to where it doesn't look that inviting as much. It just looks your general, like, if you go to a mall, like your general, like, store in the corner, that you're like, oh, that looks cool, but do I want to go in there? Or you might want to go in there, but maybe just to sit and drink. Like, it's hang out for maybe an hour, but not that long. Or you're just taking a breather from shopping. And mostly it's just a place just to hang out and drink. Like drink all the stuff, like the smoothies and stuff like that. As for the Juice Bar and Mighty Morphin, it was a character. In Megaforce, it was just a building. What I mean by that is in the Juice Bar in Mighty Morphin, it felt like a character in a way where, like, it has so much stuff going on. Every episode was different to where how it was played out. There was like, one was when Kimberly was, doing aerobics. Another one was, martial arts with Jason and those guys. And Zach was doing hip hop keto, or, doing magic tricks to kids, or there was a competitions going on, training going on, and etc. Like, there was a lot of stuff. Each episode was so different that you didn't know what was going to happen at the Juice Bar. That it was just like very entertaining, to where it's like, I want to hang out there. I want to go there and hang out and see what happens and see what all is really cool about, all that. So it would be really cool to like go there, because it was just very interesting of how it was. And I think that's one of the things I liked about it, was like, you never know with the episode what was going to be or how it's going to start out. If they're going to be there, and who's going to be teaching what. Are they going to be teaching kids? Are they going to teach adults? I know one episode was Tommy and Jason, teaching self-defense to some adults, some women. So I thought that was really cool. Same with, like, Adam and Rocky teaching the kids, always in I forgot what episode it was, but it's one of Adam's focus episodes in the beginning when he was there. And also just a bunch of stuff. There was a bunch of stuff in there. And I think that's why I liked it, because it was just like, even like just watching the first episode, it was like Jason is training, Billy is training, like he's taking the class to do martial arts, or Kimberly is on the balance beam doing gymnastics, and Trini is doing her martial arts, And then that whole deal. So I think that was really cool is that you saw kind of like what could happen, and then after that it was like what was next for the juice bar, like what. Even though at times Ernie thought he was gonna go out of business, but truth be told, my Morphin, if we didn't have the juice bar, I don't know what else we would have. Because it felt like a place that you wanted to go hang out with your friends after school on the weekends. I mean, come on, it was just a fun place, even to go study. So, and have like cool fairs there. Like they had a culture fair for food, or peace conferences. They had a bunch of stuff. So I thought it was cool. So that's why I felt like it more of a character instead of a building or a place. Where in Megaforce, it was just a building. Like, yeah, they went there and hanged out, but that's all it was a juice bar. It was like a place just to go in, get food, and that's it. Like, there's nothing was like popping out of like, oh, it's cool. And also the decor was kind of like, it was like, for me, a juice bar, if I was going to create a juice bar even now, I would have a little more color and not just your like fruit over here and stuff like that, but just something more fun to bring the people in, just to kind of make it more fun. Now, I'm not saying this because the 90s were colorful and we're in the modern age, but this is like 2000, like early 2010s. But it was just because of the fact that like when you go to a mall, it's like a different storefront. So like it's gonna be more fun, colorful. You want to go in there, and that's what draws you. For most people, at least for me. Now let's talk about the host or the owner of those bars, of those places, which is Ernie. They try to copy an Ernie. Now here's the deal. Like Bulk and Skull, you cannot copy an Ernie, especially from the Mighty Morphin, because Ernie is Ernie for a reason from Mighty Morphin. Like, granted, the actor playing Ernie in Megaforce did his best. I'm not trashing his performance, but he did really best what he did, what he could, what he got, and stuff like that for the writing, for the character. But Ernie in Mighty Morphin was just funny. Like, I remember the episode Different Drum. He just comes in with, like, towels on the car and just, like, there's music playing. He just starts dancing. He's like, hi, what's up? And he's just like this, and he's just dancing. And he's just having fun. Like, Ernie in Mighty Morphin was like the fun, lovable uncle of the group. He was the uncle that you want to hang out with. He was the uncle that was just great. His actor brought it. Like, he was just the fun uncle that you want to hang out with. And he was also more than that. He was a mentor. Like, when it was the episode football season, he helped Tommy with wanting to play football because, of course, all Tommy did was karate his whole life. So he never played football. He never trained for football. So, basically, Ernie helped him. And I think that's what I liked about Ernie, was that he wasn't just the owner of this juice bar. He wasn't just the owner of this building. He was there being helpful, and vice versa. They would help him without hesitation. And I think that's what they liked. Like, they had a good... I feel like they had a good, like, friendship with each other. Like, I think that's the thing I liked about it with Ernie, was that he was more, like, inviting. He also was, like... He puts Bulk and Skull in his place, in their places. It was just so much fun. And I think that's why I like it a little bit more when it comes to my Morphin Ernie, is because Ernie in that peak was just funny. Like, there are times I'm like, are you improvising this, or are you just like going with the flow, or is this actually what the writer said to thing? So, like, I think the one is A Second Chance, which is a soccer episode, and with this young kid that Jason and Zach have to help train. And they say to Ernie, but aren't you the one that, he brought out the roster of who all made the team, and this one kid didn't make it. And they're all like, Ernie, can you do another tryout? It's like, oh no, I gotta talk to the coach. Ernie, aren't you the coach, and aren't you the one that decides who's on the team? And he's like, oh yeah, I do. So there are times where, like, it's just funny. And I love that with Ernie. He's like, he's the forgetful uncle sometimes, or he's the fun uncle. He's the friend that you can confide in. He's the one person that'll help you out regardless of what situation it is. And he has really good advice and really good smoothies. Like, he tries different flavors, and I think that's why I like him. And he'll host different things. and he was just funny. Where the Ernie in Megaforce slash Super Megaforce, he was there, but even watching a clip, I kind of forgot about him. Where Ernie, I just watched, like, as I said, Mighty Morphin has 100 some episodes or 200, and I just watched. This is like maybe the 4th episode. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. And I remember this so vaguely, so prompt, because it was just funny in my brain. Like that, he had a personality. He had a character. That is one of the things he had, and I think that's why I liked it, is because of that. As to why he made more sense of it. He was just funny. Next is the school. Now, as you both know, both are set in high school. The thing with Megaforce, high school is, again, it was just a building. It didn't feel like the character. Whereas, like, in my Morphin, it was a character. Like, they actually went to school. Like, in Megaforce, you kind of go to school, but at the same time, not really. And that's due to the fact it was mostly action and not character development either, or no stuff going on. Where this was like, there was stuff going on in schools, like Trini and Kim doing a petition for a dumping site, toxic waste, or, you know, there was food going on, or a book sale, you know. Or them in a classroom and they're actually going to school, and Bulk of Skull being Bulk of Skull, just, you know, being them, and Miss Applegate put in their places. So I think that's why I like it, is because, like, it felt like a school that wasn't just a building. In fact, they had monster fights in there. I don't know if that was like my Morphin, but I know that school had like a lot of history with this, like where it's like monster fights. There was stuff going on. There was this. There was that. It's so much, like, even for just a building, it felt like there was a lot more stuff. Like, you had the one episode where Billy and Kim switched brains and they switched classes, and like it was in school and they had to go to different to the same classes they had to go to, but they did it just actually because of the personality traits in the brain. But it was just so funny in that sense. But that's the thing with the school, is that, like, you can know, and they go to the locker, so go to this, they'll talk about class, like, or what's, you know, what you have to do for, you know, whatever, and all that stuff. Megaforce, however, the school is there, but it's just there. Like, there's no, like, even just watching Megaforce, I couldn't grasp the high school as much. Like, it looked too generic, and there was a lot of close-ups on it. Like, it felt weird, like you were on Zoom class or something. It was like that, and it's like, how are they filming this? Which was weird. And it's like, also, they didn't go to school often in Megaforce. I don't know if that was because they only had like a certain amount of episodes compared to like Mighty Morphin, where they had 3 Sentais into like one season. But I'm just like, what happened? It's like, did it not become something else? It felt just like a building. And sometimes in TV shows, sometimes I want the building to not just be a building, unless it's like one and off for one, where it's like if you just go to one place in a show or drama, then it's like, oh, it's fine. But if you're using it a lot, let there be personality or stuff going on. And there were times when they were filming it, I always saw on 2 of the Rangers and hardly anybody else, which was kind of strange. And all that stuff. Now, as for the teachers, this is one where people are going to be like, why? So, basically, there's a science teacher named Mr. Birdley. And then he had in Megaforce. In Mighty Morphin, there's Mrs. Applebay. I could be saying it wrong, but it's been a while since I watched my Morphin. This is getting off pure, like, watching it last weekend and now doing this video, which what I wanted to do in the first place. So I'll do it. I remember more about Mrs. and Mighty Morphin than I do watching the interaction between the students and this teacher, because Miss Apple was just so funny. She checked Boca's skull. She literally was just like funny. She's the teacher that you wanted. Basically, you wanted her to be your teacher, and I think that was something I liked, because the fun projects she would give out, the fun stuff she would do. And I think that's one thing I liked about her, was that she was a strict teacher, but she also was more fun, and she had a lot of things in that. So I think that's what I liked about it more with her. And same with the principal, because he had a toupee, so it kept falling off every single time there was a attack. Especially when they had like the food fight episode, and there was in the juice bar and with the toupee. I don't know why, it was just funny for me. Megaforce with the teacher just feels like you are in there just like, I don't want to be here. Like, I like science, don't get me wrong, but personality wise it's hollow. Like, it was like, yeah, he was surprised like no one likes this stuff, but I'm just like, wait, that doesn't make sense. Like some of the stuff is like, with Mighty Morphin, it was kind of like we started with the juice bar with them and then went to the school, which I don't mind that. And then Billy was with his friends, and they all knew like he liked this stuff. And it was like, huh? This was like with the teacher, especially with Miss Apple Albase, because she knew like Billy was talks like this, so she knows all that. She knows maybe he's into science, stuff like that, so she understands that. But this was like, what? Like, it felt too hollow with this. Like, the interactions between Noah and him was like, first interaction with it was like, like it didn't match well. And yeah, it didn't at all. Like, it was just very Now on to the characters. Here's the biggest thing. Alright, I'm going to do the characters first, and I'll go on to another thing I want to talk about it. We're going to do Jason and Rocky versus Troy. Troy's the chosen one, and yet the plot went nowhere. And also, I felt like he wasn't even, like, you're not seen there. He's not seen there with the team, like, going to high school as much. Like, I think that's the biggest thing. Sorry about me scratching my nose, by the way. That's like the biggest thing, is that he, there's no connection with this, where Jason and Rocky, Rocky came in later. Jason was leader, of course Rocky wasn't, but they had a connection with the team where it's like, they're friends. Hello. They are friends. And you can see that because they hang out a lot. And also, it feels like the transition from Jason to Rocky worked out better. Also, because I even watching when Austin left, Rocky came in, I didn't mind it so much. But I prefer sort of like the Mighty Morphin cast, because they actually have personality. Like Zach with, the different things like keto and stuff like that. And Adam coming in, Karen Ashley, and etc. Trini and Kim and Billy, Tommy. Now, here's the difference when they first get their powers. In Megaforce, it's just a trait, and it works, but they only are subject to that trait. Like, Emma likes the environment and is like extreme biking, dirt biking. It's like, here, let's do this. But the way they go at it for some of the stuff, I'm like, it doesn't make sense for some of the stuff. Like, yeah, I get that, but nothing. where in my Morphin, when they said, like, Kimberly, because we're doing pinks, because they're both pinks, she was the Valley girl, but she's like, you care about your friends, you care about the environment. But at the same time, you saw episodes where that was true. And also, she grew a lot. She cared about her friends. She cared about her people. And acting-wise, it showed it. This is like a hollow version of that, where it was like, what? Like, it was, like, what? And then it was just like very like, it didn't make sense on some of them. And also when they were talking to each other, it felt like a disconnect. Like, at times, where it felt like they were just teammates, really. I know they're trying to go for, like, Mighty Morphin, but it just felt like they were not friends within the show. At least where when I was watching. Where Mighty Morphin, even with Adam, Aisha, and Rocky came in after, Jason, Zach, and Trini, it felt like friends. Like, they all connected, they all hanged out together, not just at the juice bar, but at school. They would go help out each other. This was just because they want to focus so much on action. There's no interaction outside of them fighting half the time. Maybe 2 people, maybe 2 or 3 people, but not the whole team as much, or at least what I saw, unless it was like the first episode. And that's no good. Like, if you're going to have a team, especially these guys working together as friends, make it more believable to have them actually interact. Cheer them on something for sports. Cheer them on. Like, that's the thing with my Morphin. That's why it worked. There was, like, competitions that, maybe Tommy and Jason did together. Same with Adam, Rocky, and Aisha. Same with a lot of different things. There was, like, even science fairs or whatever. They went and support each other, regardless if it's helping the environment, or there's competitions, or there was something they were doing. They helped out. And I think that's the biggest thing with my Morphin, was you genuinely felt it. Because you felt like, I want those friends. Like, to the people who care about you, the people who are going to be there for you, and also the ones that are, like, they support you. This was, like, mostly just, like, maybe 5 to 10 minutes, or even less than that, of them out of suit. Majority of the time in suit, and, like, the last 2 minutes out of suit. Like, it just felt like that. Because sometimes I couldn't even watch it. It was like I had to skip most of it. Because it felt rushed. Where Mighty Morphin was pacing was, like, a lot like, oh, I can watch this and it's funny. Especially when you bring in Bulk and Skull, which I would say this. Very happy they didn't bring in Bulk and Skull. Or a Bulk and Skull. Because Bulk and Skull from Mighty Morphin, even, like, up to Lost Galaxy, Mighty Morphin were hilariously funny. The actors were just funny to the point where I'm just like, are they improvising half these lines? But also how they just, like, have fun. Like, they, went from the bullies to them trying to find out who the Rangers were, which I would say that was the best thing about it, because the things they would go through just to do it is the best, because it's just so funny. Like, it's just crazy. And it's just like, I don't get it. On how, sorry, I'm looking up something on my laptop for something. Just how it was just like, it was very so, cause like, and there's like other ones, like there's a bully episode, right, where it's like on Megaforce, but it didn't feel like Troy was being bullied, right? But it felt very hollow, like, what? Now, I'm not blaming the actors on this. They tried their best on what direction they were going for, or they were telling, and I think behind the scenes, I don't know if this is true and fans out there who watch Megaforce probably would tell me. I think they wanted more, as I saw comments on other Ranger reviews of Megaforce. Said that like Troy and those guys, Andrew Gray and those guys wanted more for their characters. So I don't blame it at all. I just blame on the producers. I blame on the director. I blame on the writers, because I've got a feeling they wanted more for these characters, not just go in, say some lines, and then go fight. And yeah, it just felt awkward. And also it felt awkward even with them as a team. It's like I didn't feel like it was genuine. Like maybe two of them were friends, like get like Noah and Jake or something, but G and Emma. But Troy was like the odd one out. Like it's one thing like, oh boy, like Jungle Fury, where like you had the odd one out because he comes in as like the Cub, he's a Red Ranger. That's one thing. But this was just awkward. Like every time I watched Megaforce, I just felt like it wasn't even like cohesive. All I saw was like the stock footage of Go Sager or even Go Kaiger. And I'm like, they didn't really mesh. Off set, maybe they were better. Like they were probably friends and stuff, but on set you couldn't tell. Where Mighty Morphin, it's like from the get-go, from the first episode of Mighty Morphin with Jason and those guys, and saw this bright light shining my face. It's my computer, so sorry about that. I'll do this way so it doesn't shine at me. They were friends to where Bulk Skull came in and started like bullying like Kimberly and Trini about like, hey, you want to go on a date with us? And they were all like just standing their ground and saying, not a chance. And Zach coming up behind them, protecting them. But they're like, we got this, Zach. And he's like, oh yeah, you got this, and that stuff. And I think that's the biggest thing I love about it, is that like you could tell that these are friends, that they genuinely care about each other. Their actions are very natural. And all this stuff. Like Tommy coming in like after being evil, that's different for being like odd one out and trying to figure out where he wants to be, especially after he became good. That is one thing, because he still helps out, he's still at this. It's like that's different because it integrates with the story to where now they're friends. This is nothing. And now talking about Sixth Ranger, Robo Knight. There's some funny moments, but they're not so many. I think there's like one in the library scene of Robo Knight. And those moments I don't mind, but he was like hip hop. Now, we've had a hip hop robot before, which was in Turbo, which a lot of people don't like Turbo, but I personally like it. I think because it was the last time we're going to see Adam and those guys. But at the time in the 90s, hip hop was coming in hot. Like it was coming up. It was like getting more media, getting more into shows, movies at the time. It worked for that because it was different than Alpha 5. So I didn't mind that. But also, like, Robo Knight, all they did was, like, remember your mission. Remember your mission. Like, it was just, where, and also, it still felt awkward. It's almost like when you took Alpha 5 Robo Knight and just didn't do any personality with it. Where Alpha 5 literally is like Robo Knight, or Robo Knight. But it's, but he is better. He's just fun and funny and hilariously funny. Now, that's the good guys. Let's talk about the bad guys. Rita. It was cheesy show, but she was funny. She, like, I have a headache, but it was like, it worked because she was surrounded by idiots. Literally. She has Goldar and the rest of them. I forgot their names because it's hard to remember sometimes. Only because they were funny. And they were idiots. Now, in Megaforce, they were just your general bad guy that was like, I'm gonna go destroy the Rangers, or I'm gonna destroy the world. And the voice acting, I don't blame the actor. They were probably like directed to do it like this on the trait, but it was just like, oh my gosh, it was like it was just very like, okay, like there's no medicine to it as much. Like maybe for a little bit, but it sort of was just same voice. Like we are trying to be a villain, and I think this one thing about Rita and Zed is that the counter is like they're both so different in their voices, but it goes from Rita being like the shrieking yell, but at the same time she goes from this and then it goes up, where this is just very like very like one note almost, and it's not genuine. It's just very like I'm bored here basically. And it's no better than Supermegaforce because they bring in, you know, of course I didn't mind them tying it the fact that like my brother's destroyed plot. I didn't mind that tying that because I thought that was actually not a bad idea. Sort of, you know, all this stuff. With Mind and Morphin, when they transitioned to the Die Ranger footage, or not really footage, Die Ranger series, which was with the Keeper Ranger and their new Zords, I actually liked that a lot better because a better explanation as to why they got Zords. Gosei only said like, you have locked on powers you have before never seen, which I am mentioning to the Sentai footage because a lot of those were Sentai. So I'm just like, what? Like, you still use that footage even though people don't know what maybe some people don't know what Sentai is. So it's weird. Where I would say with Zordon, the way he says it was like, such with Tommy's Dragon Sword, it's like it was very damaged in the last fight. That's beyond repair. Which is kind of like if you have a car and it's totaled, and it's just cheaper to just buy or use the one instead of trying to repair the whole car that's damaged. Like, yeah, it's gonna suck, but you gotta get a new one. That's sort of what happened in this, where it's like they just got new Zords, which are called Thunder Zords, which I thought that's not a bad transition. It's like, hey, it works. Like, sure, we got to have to stay with the G Ranger suits for 3 seasons and that, but I think at the time they were thinking because it was new, it was something fresh, they didn't want to change everything. Which, yeah, I mean, if they went to the Die Ranger suits, I'm not sure if kids would watch, but then again, it was the 90s, so they wanted to make sure that was familiar, which I don't mind. Like, continuity is good, and you know, it's not that bad. Now with Supermegaforce, every single time they unlocked a new power, they got a new power up, it just felt very like Gosei did not say any much. He's like, you have unlocked a new power. From what? Walking across the street. From what? From like, you know, the only episode I would say though is the one where they actually earned the power, they actually earned the thing, or actually was enjoyable. It's one I think a lot of people will agree with me is the Jungle Fury one, because that's a direct copy from Gokaiger with Geki Ranger, but also Casey's actor directed the episode. So that one is the one I actually don't mind because it worked out in the favor, and I didn't mind that episode because it's not as bad. It's, you know, that was only like a few times they brought the actor back, but that one I didn't mind. Now let's talk about something else that is very, I think a lot of people know, is that Power Rangers uses most of the time Japanese footage, at least when they're in their suits. Unless it's Mighty Morphin, and it's like they kind of do both, so it's a little bit different, especially with the G Ranger suits, because they had to go in Japan and film them in those suits, so it's a little bit different. I use that footage, but it was like watching. I'm trying to word this right. When I see the stock footage, especially in the first season of Mighty Morphin, you know, the G Ranger suits, and then of course I watch the full thing, it doesn't take me out because what you're seeing in suit and out of suit is the same person. So it works. It works to where it's like, oh, this is Trini, or oh, this is Kimberly, or oh, this is Tommy, it's Jason, Zach, this is Billy. It works in that sense. because it doesn't take you out, and it does take me out to where it's like, oh, this is what it is. With Super Megaforce and with Megaforce, worse than Super Megaforce, it doesn't match as much. Like, you know, in order for, I feel like, for them to try to adapt something from Sentai and to make these characters, you have to watch the footage, because if you don't, it's worse. Like, in Ghost Ager, it was like, when they did the Megaforce, it just, the stock footage did not work well. And I'm just like, really? It didn't match. Worse was also in Super Megaforce because of Jake and Doc. Doc was Ziggy from RPM, basically. Jake was not. So I'm like, they could switch colors. He could have been blue, and then Jake could have been, or Noah could be green. They've done that in Power Rangers before. They've done that from, you know, Tommy being Green Ranger to White Ranger and Mighty Morphin. You know, they're not afraid to, like, change colors on the same person. I mean, why I think Tommy has like five different colors to choose from when it came to Power Rangers. Literally, not kidding on that. I mean, he went from, you know, green to white to red to black. He literally had all three. Or four. Or five. Like, he had all four. Four. I can't count. Math's not my subject. And all that. So that's the thing. And even when Keeper Ranger, which I didn't realize with Die Ranger was a kid, it still didn't take me out of the show for Tommy in now suit. So that's the only thing that, like, bugs me with Megaforce and Super Megaforce, is that the stock footage does not mesh up with the actual characters. And I'm not blaming them. They just, you know, the problem was, in the 90s, we actually got plots, we got character development, we got growth. In Megaforce, they just wanted action. Who cares about character development? Kids don't mind that. Kids don't like that. The problem is, though, this was on Nickelodeon where Ninja Turtles was airing, and they had a lot more violent stuff and development in the characters. So, it was darker. You're afraid to go dark. Like Disney did it with theirs. Just saying. But even my Morphin went dark at times. And they weren't afraid to. Like, they weren't afraid to go dark. They weren't afraid to go there. They weren't afraid to, like, you know, break up the Rangers, or, you know, put spells on them to break them up, or, you know, learn life lessons, you know. And in doing that, it worked without talking down to them. Megaforce and Super Megaforce, I always felt like they were just talking down to them. Speaking of talking, let's go to the next subway, which is the fight scenes. And I'm talking more the in-suit fight scenes, or fight scenes in general. Mighty Morphin, they don't talk a lot. Megaforce, it's like a monologue when they're talking while fighting. Like, they're just standing around and fighting. And I'm just like, how? And I think my thing is when they're in the suits, it's dubbed, which is, you know, like they did in my Morphin, they did for Power Rangers. But it's just very, like, when they talk, it's, like, very, like, like, it doesn't come out as, like, natural. Where at least with, like, you know, in my Morphin, I'm going to probably include the movie this, because this is the one you know, it was like, you know, kiss and make up, which Aisha says, or Adam's like, have you ever played kick the can, or, you know, all that stuff, or even ones like, you know, just, I think the one which is like I Guy, which is like with Jason and they're the circle, I think Billy's cousin, to I would say, like, protect him. It was like combination 4 or combination 3, which if with martial arts, because I take martial arts, those are kind of like self-defense combinations. A lot of times you do like self-defense 1 steps, and there's like a number with it, like 1, 2, 3, or 4 or 5, depending on what you know, what you learn and what kind of martial arts you learn. But that's like the self-defense and stuff like that. So, like, how to counter that and how to do all that. So that's what it means. But they didn't even, like, that's the time I don't mind them talking. It's like combination 1, and they fight. There's no talking. There's just mostly them fighting. like in some cases I don't mind if they're like yelling, Adam look out, or Tommy look out, or Rocky look out, or Jason look out, etc. Kim look out, Billy look out, Zach look out, Trini look out, Aisha look out, so on and so forth. That I don't mind because they're protecting each other. So I didn't mind that. Like, that's when I'm like, I didn't mind that. But it just felt very, it was more like in my Morphin when they're fighting, it feels more genuine. But also in my Morphin, a lot more out of fight suits because they're all martial artists. Two of them knowing gymnastics. I think one was a dancer, but most of it was martial artists. So it's like it worked. So you believed it, and especially in the suit. In Megaforce, Supermegaforce, they mostly talked, and it was just like every line, every single time, like they fought, they just say a line, and also it didn't make sense. Like, it was very generic, like "good job this" or "good job that." I was like, can you just fight? Like, it's one thing to do like a one-liner here and there, but don't do it every single time you fight somebody. Just saying, because it's one thing when they're facing the bad guys, like with Tommy and Goldar or something. They'll have like a standoff, and they'll kind of trash talk each other, or the villain will be like, "This is my plan." That's one thing before they fight, but it's not a monologue. It's like one or two lines or three. Megaforce, really? It's just very like, it doesn't make sense. And it's almost like, as I said before, it's like they look like a team, but there are times where, because of stock footage, it's like they really heavily just did the stock footage. As someone who watched Go Sager and Go Kaiser, especially with the Go Sager, even though some people don't like that one, I could tell what the stock footage was. But also, a lot of them were like direct copies. Well, okay, I'll say not direct copies from Go Sager. Just because of why, because it's a little bit different. They couldn't bring stuff from Go Sager as much. There's a reason for that. But it's just like, it was very like, there was no originality for the lines. There was no stuff, and the funny bits in there. There was some, but it felt flat, and it's just. It was like me watching it. It was almost like watching rehearsal as they're developing their character, basically. Where in Mighty Morphin, it's like from the get-go, when I watched the first episode, I'm like, oh, this is interesting. This is cool. I like the personalities. I like the characters, It's like, it draws you in. And all that stuff. So it's really strange. How they just kind of be like, okay, this is not good. So that's my thing. That's like, when watching Megaforce, Supermegaforce, I was like, But Mighty Morphin, when they were transitioning to, the Die Ranger stuff, or even the ninja stuff, it just felt more genuine, and it worked out better than with Megaforce, Megaforce. Locked out powers you have never seen before. And I was just like, what? Like, he wasn't explained. Zordon at least explained. That's my thing. And also another thing with my Morphin that I liked, when they introduced new characters like Adam, Rocky, and Aisha, before they were Rangers, they just became friends with the Rangers, and they found out they were Rangers, and then they just became allies. But it worked because it varied like the story. I think that's the problem with the plot of my Morphin and Megaforce. Megaforce had no plot. Like, it was just like almost direct. It was almost like, we're heroes, we're here to save the day, and no character development, no talking to each other almost. And it felt hollow to a lot of stuff. I mean, they were trying and stuff, but yeah. And also, like, a lot of them, like, I think the girls didn't really have focus episodes because they only had like so many episodes to do, which. You gotta remember, Sentai has 50. And they're just picking whatever. To where it's like, huh? That doesn't make sense. And then it's like, with Mighty Morphin, it just felt like everyone had a chance to shine. Yeah, it was longer, but the episodes were just great because of it. Like the 5-part Korean with Evil, or, all that stuff. Green No More, or... Mirror of Regret, which is one of my favorites for Adam, actually, because he's actually my favorite character. One of my favorite characters, actually. But that's the thing. I remember more about those kind of episodes than I do when watching just 2 or 3 episodes of Megaforce, because I felt like I was just watching just Go Sager, and that's it. Like, I wasn't even watching the Power Rangers, and I was just watching like clips of them just fighting. No interaction, no plot, no thing. So it's like, eh. Also, one thing that irked me: Gia and Jake's romance. Like, Jake's like, oh, Gia has I have a crush on Gia, and just it felt very like forced at times. Like, I don't know. At least with like Kimberly and Tommy, when it started out, it was kind of like they had a crush on each other, but it was very subtle to where it was like that wasn't the plot of their characters as much. Even when he became good for Green Ranger, he didn't, and he helped with a booth. Everyone did, or all this stuff. Like, he wouldn't just like go up there and be like, most people can. I mean, I get why some people are different in relationships, but it just felt like it was in my Morphin just very subtle. Same with like Zach, and when he was crushing on a girl, or Adam when he was crushing on a girl, and vice versa. With a lot of other people. It's even Billy. Like, Billy at least was like getting girlfriends here and there in my Morphin. He was asking people out and stuff like that. So I think that's my thing, is that like it worked, and Billy was just cool with that. Like, that's the thing though, is like, yeah, I felt like Mighty Morphin, even though they weren't teenagers, they felt like more like teenagers and looked like more like teenagers than Megaforce, where they just like, oh, hi. And the interaction between the Mighty Morphin cast and even just the characters felt more genuine, felt more like a team, because they were friends. I still love, and their interaction with Bulk of Skull, because they were like, the interaction between them is really great. In fact, I think of Bulk of Skull as like main characters in the show, not just side. Even though I still like the one episode where Bulk of Skull are like, we have to get a C on this test, or they're gonna have the 6 good students tour them, and Zach was counting, and it's all them, and they're like, let me help you with that. It's like, see, those moments I remember, and I just watched this like last weekend, as I said, and there's how many episodes of that. Megaforce, Supermegaforce has like how many episodes, and I don't remember that much about it, and I just watched it like an hour ago for episodes. Like, yeah, and it's just, yeah, there's no like, like, Troy wasn't really a leader either. Like, he didn't really interact with the team as much as I got to see. At least with Jason, it was like they were friends, but when he took the role of a leader, it was like they trusted him because they he could be a good one. That's the best thing. So anyway, that's kind of like my review in comparison of both. I personally just like Mighty Morphin a lot better. Megaforce it has some kind of good moments, but there's only like 2 or 3 moments. Beyond that, it didn't really have much. I think the Mighty Morphin, the highlight is that the better character interaction. It was plot focused, where like the teenagers got to be teenagers out of suit. You got their training and stuff like that. Where in Megaforce, you mostly just got to see them in suit, like fighting. Like, there were times like, yeah, they hanged out, but it felt like they were forced at times, and it didn't make sense for some of the plots for them. So yeah, that's my thing on it. I'll probably do more movies like this, videos like this, videos like this, where I might do some comparison. I might also give you what I liked about some Super Sentai series, or even just, favorite character moments from different series that I liked for Power Rangers or Sentai, or even actors. Not sure. But if you have any comments of what you want me to do, to talk about Power Rangers wise or Sentai, feel free to tell me. And if you want me to go ahead and do this a comparison with Downhill Thunder, that's probably a possibility because it'd be cool. Because that's kind of like a rendition of my Morphin, done better. But yeah, that's it for this video. Hope you guys like it. Click the like button, and if you want me to do, as I said, more like this, comment below on what you want me to do for future videos. And yeah, all that. So yeah, have a wonderful day and see you next time. Bye.